What does it actually really take to level up as a man? And maybe you're 25, maybe you're 35, maybe you're 65. What does it really take? I'm going to tell you a quick story in this, today. And I believe you're going to see yourself in it. I look back to when I was 18 and I tell you, I cringe, right? I'm going to talk about the wall that nearly broke me. And thank goodness I had a man I could reach out to, okay? So, and also, 75% of the guys who watch the YouTube channel, Gavin Top YouTube channel, are not subscribed. Please subscribe. And why? Because what it does, the algorithm, Facebook AI, YouTube AI, all those things will just connect with more men like you, okay? So we can actually encourage more men. So please subscribe to the channels, the podcasts, etc. So and many people don't know this, but I had a couple of, I got the boot from school before I turned 15, and so the only job I could get, oh man, the only job I could get was, and my dad got me a job, it was a favour, was actually catching chickens. Yeah, that was my best efforts. All right. Oh man, that was torturous. But anyway, I went through a few jobs. I was riding track work, and then eventually I got a job as a brickies labourer. I was just asking I had friends and family asking for favours, right? So the best job, got a job as a brickie labourer. And he was a great guy, Johnny Muir. He passed away now. Just a great man, and really took me under his wing. And then offered me an apprenticeship. So, I think I was 16 when I started this apprenticeship. And I remember thinking, I was going to work for half the money. I was trying to pay, I was paying off a block of land that I'd purchased. Actually, one of the jobs I had was in a market garden, sorting out carrots and lettuces and what have you. That was another one. Anyway, there was another great guy. I should tell you, Gordy Kloss, the great guy. Yeah. Anyway, I brought a block of land then. Anyway, long story short, this Johnny Moore taught me some great things in regards to laying bricks, and he ran out of work. It was a hard time in those couple of years. So I had to go and work for these other guys. I went and started getting a job to try and finish my apprenticeship. And the truth was, I had a bad attitude. And by the time I was 18, I just had a bad attitude. And I'd been, as an amateur, I climbed the ladder fairly quick and ended up biting off more than I could chew, and I got knocked out. And maybe that's another story. Leave me a comment if you'd like to hear that story about me getting knocked out. That was a big pill to swallow. Anyway, I'm 18. And I'm working for this guy, and I liked him, but it was all me. I had a massive pride and ego. And I remember overhearing him talk on the telephone. Back in those days, nobody had a mobile phone, but this guy had one of those, those carry, he had a phone in a bag. He was the only one on the job site. He had this phone. I overheard him talking to this builder about he couldn't get to a job. He needed more bricklayers. So I thought, all right, great. So I stuck my hand up and said, I'll do the job, because it was holidays or something come on. I don't remember exactly, but I remember taking the job. And I remember getting some tools together and borrowed some tools from my old boss, Johnny Muir. Anyway, I remember starting this job, okay? And this is the job that nearly broke me. First wall, first day, I was busted. And what happened was, I'm thinking, hey, listen, if you've been 18 and you thought you knew everything, send me a message, say, Gav, that's me. Leave a comment up. Oh God, I quiver when I think about me at 18. But me at 20, me at any of those, that basically a 10-year period from 15 to probably 24, 25. Anyway, so I start this wall. I picked the easiest wall. I thought I'll be able to rip this up. And I'm weighing, and I'm maybe getting up to my waist and I started to think something's not right here. I don't know what's going on, but something's not right. And as I get up and I realise, hang on a minute, I start to pull out the measuring tape. You know where this is going. And I realise what I've done. Okay. Oh, there's about 40 million. Yeah. When you're laying bricks, okay, generally on a single story house, there'll be like 23 courses. I'm guessing, it's been a long time since maybe 20, whatever the number is, it's around that, 23, 25 courses to the top. From the concrete to the top, okay, and so I realised what I've done. I've measured it, and I'm like halfway up, and there's like, say there's 15 courses to go on one side and 14 courses on the other side. I'm like, what have I done? So I ring the guy who I got the job through. I rang him on his phone. I had to go to a phone box and whatever. And he goes, mate, you got a pig in the wall. I said, pig? Like I'd heard other blokes talk, and that's what it is. It's like you start at one end of the house, by the time you get around the other end of the house, is that there's 14, there's 24 courses, and there's 23 courses. It's like, I've buggered it. I remember, like, I didn't know what was going on. I remember bursting into tears. And I'm 18, thinking I'm a tough guy, and I'm crying on the side of the road like a baby. Let's say an undeveloped man. There certainly wasn't a man. It was an undeveloped male. But I realised what I'd done wrong. He told me I pulled the whole thing down. Anyway, through this one guy, this one man, he actually coached me through it, and I worked, and he asked me different questions. I was able to get my way out of it. I was able to dig my way out of it. Nobody ever knew. All right, you know now. You and me know. Nobody ever knew. And man, it was a big pill to swallow. I realized, man, I don't know anything. I knew enough to get by, but I didn't know anything. And as I remember, it was a grind, man. It was hard going, because there's a whole heap of other things I realised I didn't know. Okay. But what you have to do when you're doing it right, and I tell you something, I got some, I had a couple of 3-year stints in my bricklaying career. I was in, I was out, I was in, I was out. I was unteachable, but I got opportunities, particularly when I was boxing. And I become the Australian champion. I remember, I've spoken about this before. Maybe you've heard, I got some opportunities, and man, I was flying. At one point, I had about a dozen men working for me, and we were building a house a day. It was a license to print money, I'm telling you. And I remember those jobs. We'd do 150 houses in a spot. We'd go to another suburb. We'd do 100 houses. But it was hand over fist. It was amazing. But what I was good at was putting the right men on the right part of the house, the right wall, because a lot of the houses, they were only like 6 or 8 houses, and they were mirror, they were back to front. So it was, but what I learned, right? You couldn't really stuff it up. But what I learned, I become very good at spotting things that were level and plumb. I would walk up and down motivating bricklayers and labourers, and I'd jump on the trailer, go as hard as I can, set the pace, and then go. Pretty much. Come back and smoke, give a motivational speech, and then go again, And I loved it. I think the blokes loved it. I remember men saying to me quite a few times, Gav, I've been laying bricks for 20 years and I've never laid this many bricks in my life. Anyway, but what I had to do with that job when I was 18, what I had to do was actually adjust. I had to adjust the mortar, the mud. And sometimes, what I've learned is and over the years, with different blokes, we'd have to add more sand in the mix, or we'd have to add more cement to harden it up to lift. If you see me now, the wall's a bit out, so you got to lift one side up maybe, or squash the other side down over a period of maybe 10 courses. Sometimes you could do it at the start. In all my years, and the concreters listening are probably going to hate me. All my years, there wasn't that many, but of laying bricks. Once was the concrete ever level? There was always an adjustment that had to be made. Okay, you use the mortar to do that. you know. So sometimes you needed to add more water to make it the water a bit sorry the mortar a bit more to squash it down quicker, a bit wetter, you know. And what I've learnt over time as a man, okay, as from an 18-year-old boy, you know, and then having children, and then adjusting again. I had to adjust as a man, having other businesses, having online businesses, being a fighter, you know, being coachable as a fighter, being coachable in business. I've had to adjust. I've had to level up. I've had to level up in certain areas, and that's one thing that wall that nearly broke me, because I cried. I was in tears. It was embarrassing, you know. But I had to change, you know. So what I've learned over time, and you know, in leveling up as a husband, as a father, as a leader, as a business owner, as a leader of men, I've had to level up. You know, sometimes what I see, particularly coaching a lot of men these days, is our words, our language, the oaths that we create. I've had to adjust. You know, I've had to, back in like our fathers, our grandfathers, their grandfathers, you know, it was known your word is your bond. You know, a lot of men are saying one thing and not following through. They're saying one thing and doing another. How do you think that affects your children? How do you think that's going to affect your clients? How do you think that's going to affect your marriage? Goodness me. How's that going to affect your legacy? I'm giving you a poke in the chest here, because some men are still like they're 18. They're still like that I was when I was 18, developed, crying like a baby, I look back at me on the side of the road in that phone box. That was a tantrum. I didn't get my own way. That's what that was. That's what that was. So, I mean, you know, sometimes I've had to adjust my vision. You know, when I look at that what you've got to do with your mud, your mortar to level up, to get level, right, in this day and age, being a husband, you know, I've had to really get a clear vision. I've had to adjust my vision. You know, there was a time, and I think as a boy, before I had children, before I got married, my vision was about me. Let that land. It was all about me, myself, and I. So as I've got older, as my family's grown, my vision is about others. It's about legacy. You know, when I look at my, I look at when I was younger, and my integrity, it had holes in it. It had holes in it, my integrity. I was stubborn, I was arrogant, I was prideful. And the truth is, there is still elements of that in my 50s. Hence, I've got to continually be in a mindset of growth. I'm growing as a man. Okay, I'm leveling up. What needs to be adjusted in my integrity, in my character, so that I get level. I level up. So what needs to change? So as we're going through this masculine journey, you know, and that particularly when I'm taking men through, you know, I get men that book calls in. They'll talk with Chris or me or you know, one of our team. Around leveling up, they go through the Man Alive ebook. You know, it's a small chapter each day and an action. You know, and quite often I say, how did you go on day 12? Or how did you go on day 7? How did you go on day 18? Oh, I missed that one. Did you? Well, that says something. You know, so you're telling me you didn't follow through, or you're telling me there's still got gaps. I go, I thought that was easy. I thought, yeah. Same as that job when I was 18, it was easy. I signed up. Oh, yeah, it was easy. Till I was on the road, on the side of the road crying like a baby. So I say to you, what do you need to level up in? Or maybe a better question is, and let this land, do you know what you need to level up in? You know, and that's what we do when we're going through our Become a Better Man challenge. You know, a 4-day challenge. Sometimes it ends up a 5-day challenge. Depending on the group of men that I've got, I'll adjust. I will adjust to the men that I have in the group. That's what great coaches, that's what great leaders do. they adjust to what needs to be done. Because sometimes, I mean, we have a clear vision what we want to accomplish, but sometimes on that journey, man, that 18-year-old that's still in us, that's having a tantrum, he might need a little bit more of this or a little bit more of that, a little bit more sand, a little bit more water. I don't know. So gentlemen, as we go through this next Become a Better Man challenge, and the next one's I'm actually doing something unique with this next one in November 17th, okay? Getting ready for for 2026. This will be the last one of the year. And what I'm actually going to teach in this Become a Better Man challenge is really, and the core of it's going to be which I've been doing for 5 years, 6 years now, looking at the following 12 months, the following year, and thinking, what do I need to put in place? Who do I need to become in order for it to be the best year in my life? Imagine if somebody said to you, hey, listen, we're going to create the best year of your life. Think, well, that's a lot. That's a big, well, is it? Because I've been doing that. I say that, and I don't want it to sound like I'm coming across like I know it all, because I don't. But I'm telling you, I started doing this about 5 years ago, and each year the next one's got better and better and better. I've accomplished more, I've achieved more. In particularly in my 50s, and my family is transitioning, so I need to continue to grow. My business is growing. We're having more impact. I need to continue leveling up in my business, in my family. I need to keep leveling up in my faith. I need to keep growing, because I tell you what, faith requires courage, and a lot of men have not developed courage because their dream is not clear enough. It's not big enough. So gentlemen, I could keep talking here, but I'm telling you, this next Become a Better Man challenge, it's going to be the best one we've done this year, okay? Because it's going to be setting you up, setting all the men up who commit to this for the best year of their life. So if that sounds like something of interest, click the link in this and commit. And even, I would say, even more importantly, share this with somebody, or as important, and make sure you do it with a mate. Make sure you do it with maybe your son-in-law, maybe your brother, maybe somebody, maybe there's a young bloke you're working with and you know he needs it. He was like I was. Or like you were. So, all right, gentlemen, hey, listen, click the link, and I can't wait to see you in this challenge, and following through with the purpose and the mission that you've got inside you. All right, over and out.